New Cupid, Mr. 305, checking in.
Hello everyone, how are you? How do you feel today, Glimpsers? How's it going? I hope you are excited because of this seminar. So we're gonna get started with this seminar, which is your English tutoring seminar, guys. And what are we gonna to get started? I want to ask you this question: what is one thing that Nicaraguan wants and you guys have? Can I have some answers?
Language.
Great. So one thing that you guys have is what? English, right? And all Nicaraguans nowadays, they want to learn English. Why? Because English is very important for us. Number one, because they want to know another language. Number two, because they have more job opportunities. And number three, because they want to develop themselves and get educated more. So with that said, I'm going to pass the torch to Chelsea, and she's going to explain something about how to teach Nicaraguans. Chelsea?
Thank you, Dennis. So first I just want to ask you guys, how do you feel about English tutoring? Are you excited? Are you nervous?
Yes, we are!
Okay, great. So I want you to tell you, don't be nervous, because Dennis and I are going to be here to help you. We've both taught English in the past, and so we both have experience, and we're going to be there to support you every step of the way. So has anybody here learned a foreign language before? Maybe Spanish or maybe another foreign language?
I was trying to learn Portuguese.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What were some of the struggles that you had, Dennis?
Pronunciation.
Pronunciation?
Yeah, pronunciation. Conversation also.
So it's really important that we keep in mind some different tips while we're going to be giving our English tutoring, so that our students can make the most of it. So does anybody first of all have any ideas about what are some tips for working with ESL students?
Talk slow.
Talk slowly. Okay, so thank you. So we're going to write them up here. Okay, what's a skill that we should have when we're also teaching English?
Speak clear.
Okay, speaking clearly.
Giving examples.
Give examples, that's great.
And remember, one of the most important, be patient with your students. Okay, sometimes it can be hard, it can be frustrating, but don't lose your cool. Be patient.
Be patient. Good, Dennis. That's a really good example. That's really important. Anything else? What if I came into my class and I entered and I said, "Hey class, how's it going today? I'm ready to teach you English. Are you ready to start teaching?" Where's the eye contact? We need to have eye contact, right? Because I'm not going to be able to connect with my students if I do that. You want to be able to connect with them. We're all here to develop a relationship with our English students. Eye contact. What if I came in and I said, "Hey yo, what's up? How's it going? Catch you on the flip side."
That's hella cool.
Yeah, they're not going to understand that, you guys. We don't want to use any slang or also no bad words. We want to teach them everything appropriate, and we want to make sure that we're using language that is relevant but also easy to understand for everything, because sometimes we have slang words like in California or New York and they don't make sense to everybody. So I'm going to say no slang or bad words. Jargon. What's jargon, Dennis?
It's like, for example, when you're like use this expression in English in a repetitive way, like kind of, well, kind of, you know, all those things.
Yeah, we don't want to use words like that. I'm very guilty of using like all the time. So it's really important to be careful of the language that you're speaking when you are with your students. So I have one more example for you. Hello class, how's everybody doing today? Welcome, my name is Chelsea, I'm going to be your teacher. Can you hear me? Can you understand what I'm saying?
Nope.
No, we don't want to mumble. So this kind of goes through speaking clearly and talking slowly. One of the reasons when we're teaching English, one of the reasons that we don't want to mumble is because even though a new language learner might understand certain words, if everything's pushed together and you don't enunciate and it's really hard to understand, they're not going to be able to distinguish all the words and everything runs together. So that's why it's really important to talk slowly, speak clearly, no mumbling, and also sometimes you might want to repeat things because maybe students don't understand something the first time, but then once they hear it more, then they'll understand it better. So let's add repeat. Does anybody have any other examples of some ideas for tips for working with EFL students? I have a question really quickly. Why does it say tips for working with EFL students? What does that mean? So that's right. So it means English as a foreign language. We're teaching students in Nicaragua, which means that English for them is a foreign language. It's not their second language because ESL would be if the students were living in the States and trying to learn English so that they could participate in society. But this is really important for you guys because here in Nicaragua, a lot of the Nicaraguans don't have any opportunity to practice their English outside of the classroom. Because when they go home, then they speak Spanish. So that's why it's really important to give them opportunities to practice their English outside of the classroom, and also why it's so important that we do a good job and remember all of these tips when we're teaching English. So now I'm going to pass the torch to Dennis for the next component of the seminar.
Thank you, Chelsea. So guys, now Chelsea and I, we have been working and partnered with organizations that your students are going to attend the class. So these are like from schools, NGOs, professionals. So we have plenty of people and we have different backgrounds. We have kids, we have children, we have teenagers, we also have professionals. So what are we going to do now is that we're going to break into groups, and what are we going to, how we're going to do it is like in this way. So we're going to raise your hand, please, who speaks Spanish? Spanish, who speaks Spanish? All right. 1, 2, 3. Great. So what are we going to do now? People who speak Spanish, come to this side, please. People who do not speak Spanish at all, come to this side, okay? So we're going to have 4 groups, and people who speak Spanish are going to be in the basic groups. Why? Because we want you to be able to explain basic levels English in a proper way. Because if you don't speak Spanish, it will be even harder for you to explain the components and also the lessons. Okay. So now, for people who speaks only English, so you're gonna be dealing with and you're gonna be teaching intermediate and advanced. Okay. Why? Because for intermediate and advanced, what we want is we want them to speak. Okay. So you will need to speak Spanish because you can explain your lessons in English, okay? And it will be better for them because you can push them to speak more English and they have to understand you. Alright? In your case, guys, like I said before, you're going to be also switching between English and Spanish. It will be recommended to explain the lesson in Spanish, the grammar in Spanish and everything, and then practice English with the students. Alright? So do you have any questions so far? Are you agree with what are you going to do with the groups? Great, that's what I like. Great job, guys. So next thing that we're gonna do is number 4, which is explore lesson components. And right behind me, there is a lesson on how to fill these English tutoring lesson plans. Chelsea, we're gonna go over these components right now. Chelsea.
Okay, guys. So we have this really awesome tool here. It's called the Global Glimpse English Tutoring Handbook. And this has a lot of great resources in here to help you guys plan out your lessons and teach you how to build a lesson plan. So for any of you that are nervous about how to teach English or what are you going to teach them, don't worry, we have all the information right here for you. So I'm going to pass these out to the groups. Here you guys go. So everybody is going to share the English Tutoring Handbook. So why don't you go ahead and take a look and see what's in here. We're not going to spend a lot of time reading the whole book right now. You guys will have time to break into your groups and learn more about that. But first we're going to focus right here on the English tutoring lesson plan. And you guys are going to find that actually in the back of your books here. And there's a lot of blank plans so that you can figure it out. Now you guys, it's really, really important that you fill these out very well and very specifically and detailed, because the glimpsers that come after you are going to be using the same handbooks, and you want to leave the best information possible for them so that they can keep teaching the same students. And we want to make sure that we don't repeat the same information for our English students. Like, we wouldn't want to learn the same thing after we get new teachers, but it's also really important that we don't teach them something and then jump to something that's way too hard for them. So that's why it's set up really well that we have each lesson, and that the glimpses after you will be able to see this. So let's go ahead and dive into what a lesson plan looks like and how you're going to do this. And we're going to explore the different lesson components. Here we have a sample lesson plan. Can you pass me a marker? Thank you. Can you pass me a different color, please? Thank you. All right, guys. So first we have glimpser names.
So remember, glimpser's name, you have to write all names of the groups, like with no exception. You have to write all the people that is in your English tutoring group, okay? If it's 5, 6, or 7, write it down, all their names, okay?
All right. So here are our names. And then group level. What does group level mean, Dennis?
Group level means that if you're teaching basic group, advanced group, or intermediate group. So in this case, it's basic, right?
Yeah, so basic or beginner. Our delegation, since we're the first delegation of the summer, our delegation is M2A. And you guys are lucky you get to have the first class. All of your students are going to be so excited to meet you.
We're going to start the system.
So that's class number 1. And then the class date, you just write the date of the class, not today's date, but our first class is going to be on June 20th. Okay, guys? So those are the details here. So the next thing that we have to fill out right here is grammar and vocabulary. So the grammar, you're going to be able to find it in your workbook, and it's on page 9 are all the grammar lessons. So all you have to do is just choose one depending on what level is your group. Okay, so we have here an example. Grammar is these types of questions. So that's going to be the main grammar focus that we're going to choose. And we'll explain a little more later about how to choose that and what exactly does that mean on how to get into that. And then for vocabulary, that's going to be something that you guys just choose, but it doesn't have to, I mean, it should correlate with the grammar lesson, but you have a little bit more freedom. And once again, we'll explain more of that. So the example here is free time activities. And you can find all of this information in your books, okay? So why don't we go ahead and open them up and explore with me as we go.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask anything you want, okay?
All right. So then here in the lesson plan, it's set up really easily to understand. So we have the lesson component. Those are all filled in for you, and that's how every single lesson is going to be the same, and you're going to have the same components. Then the activity, that's what's going to change throughout each lesson. Materials, it's important to note down what type of materials that you're going to want so that you remember to bring them on the day of your class. And then the time is something that doesn't change. That's something that's set in with the lesson. So every lesson, the icebreaker, you can plan to spend about 20 minutes on it. And so why do we do lesson plan? It's really important when we're teaching English to have your lesson plan because you might think about when you're preparing and have all of these ideas. But then maybe when you walk in, you're going to be really nervous and you're going to forget everything. So that's why it's really important to have everything planned out. Also, since you're working in a group, you might be wondering, how are you going to teach the lessons in a group? You guys can figure out how to work together. Maybe you share the stage while you're presenting things, and then maybe you can break your class down into smaller groups, and each of you works with a smaller group, like that. But that's why it's also really important to plan your lessons ahead of time so that everyone's on the same page and everyone knows what you guys are going to be doing. So planning is a really important component, and that's why we have this great template here for you. So let's start the group icebreaker. You guys can turn to page 6 to 7 in your handbook, and why don't you guys just take a couple minutes to read through and figure out what that might be.
So take your time, guys. Remember, this is very important right now, because you're going to be in front of 15, 20 people, okay? So you need to have like a very good and a well-structured plan. So take your time. If you have any question, feel free to ask anything that comes out during like the explanation.
And we're going to be walking you guys through it too. Okay, great. Good job. So, for example, we'll just put here, we have the hot potato for our icebreaker.
So why do we start with the icebreaker, Chelsea? Like, what is the reason behind that? Why do we start with the icebreaker?
That's a really good question. So, like I kind of mentioned earlier, we really want to be able to connect with our students, right? With the eye contact thing. And so, this is the whole idea of why we do English tutoring with Global Glimpse, is to have a cultural exchange where you guys are sharing what you have with them, but you can also just be aware that you're probably going to learn a lot from them too, and maybe you'll even get to learn some Spanish too. So the reason that we do the icebreaker is to break the ice, right? It's that simple. We just want to start getting to know each other, and it's really important, especially on the first day, to really be able to be comfortable with your students and get to know them a little. Like, you should really focus on that, because otherwise they're not going to be able to learn as much from you if they don't know who you are or why you're doing that.
Yeah, remember that also it's a cultural exchange, and you want to build a relation with these people and establish like a good relation since the beginning. Okay, that's why like a large group icebreaker is recommended, and we recommend it for you to do it. So in order to like start like in a good tone.
Yeah. Thanks, Dennis. So here I have the group icebreaker. We chose hot potato, and on pages 6 to 7 there's a list of different icebreakers. So you guys, all you have to do is just choose one from that list that makes sense for your lesson. And also, if you know of other icebreakers that you want to use, that's fine. Like something that you've learned in a class before or at summer camp or something like that. You're welcome to be totally creative. This is just some ideas to help you get started. So then I wrote for the materials ball and papers with questions. So then, before you leave for your lesson, for English tutoring, you can read through your lesson plan to make sure that you have all the materials so that you don't forget anything. Any questions about the large group icebreaker?
Alright, great
Cool.
guys.
Okay, so what's next, Dennis?
So it's personal introductions.
Okay, so personal introductions is kind of like a segue of the icebreaker, because it allows you guys to still get to know everybody, but it also starts to begin testing their English skills.
So we encourage you to use like simple questions like what's your name, how old are you, where are you from, and at the same time you can be teaching them something like, oh, how do you answer proper, how old are you? Because you know, like it's kind of tricky in Spanish the way we answer, and it's very different the way we answer that question in English. So take that also as an opportunity to teach them something.
Yeah, exactly. So on page 8 is where you'll find, guys, some examples of personal introductions, and the type of question that you use. The types that Dennis was explaining was perfect for a beginner, but if you have an advanced group, you might want to use a more advanced question, such as, what would you do if you had $1 million? Because that's using the conditional form, and it's testing like a high level of grammar knowledge. So, but since we're a beginner, we're going to use a personal introduction question, what do you do in your free time? So for this, we don't really need any materials. It's just a speaking activity, and it's going to take 15 minutes. And so with this, what we do with the personal introductions is you just go around and ask everybody the question and see how they can answer, and so then you can learn more about them as well as test their English skills. You guys might notice that the personal introduction that we chose connects to the vocabulary theme that we chose. And that's something really important. You guys want every part of your lesson plan to connect so that it makes sense for your students. You don't want to be jumping around, and you don't want to introduce too much information or too many different new things in one lesson, because that's just going to confuse your students. Okay, so take a couple minutes to read over the personal introduction section on page 8. All right. What's next?
So next is grammar lesson. So what are we going to do here, guys? What do you think like it's here? Like it takes 20 minutes. So what do you think? Alright, so grammar lesson is what is a grammar lesson that you're going to be teaching? Like what is specific grammar lesson? For example, can be verb to be, can be like WH questions. You always have to relate the grammar lesson to the lesson focused grammar, okay? So maybe you can teach like information question like what is your full name, what do you do during free time, see? And you also connect with the vocabulary, what do you do during free time, because that's the way that it has to be connected, okay? So also remember that these questions have to be for beginners. Don't make it too complicated for them, because they may like ask a lot of questions, and or they may get confused. Okay, so let's try to keep it simple for beginners.
So with the grammar lesson component, you guys, this is going to be the presentation stage. When I was learning English, or when I was learning how to teach English, what they taught me is you'd have the 3 P's. So presentation, practice, and then production. So production is when they're able to produce something on their own, but first they need it to be presented to them, and then they need to practice. So this is the presentation stage, so a grammar lesson. So in this component of your lesson, this is when you guys, the glimpsers, are going to be doing most of the talking, because you're going to actually be explaining how it works. So here we would write, teach the word order, so you're actually just explaining something. So then you have the question word plus some form of to be, and then the subject. And then you can give examples like who, what, where, when, why. So, what are the materials that we're going to need? We want to have a chart with examples, or you could use the whiteboard that's in your classroom, and then paper and pencils for your students to practice. So the grammar lesson component should last about 20 minutes, and that's when you're going to be explaining.
Now, in this part of the lesson component, this is where you speak the most, okay? Because you are going to explain, you're going to be like taking the attention here, and also you have to be like, you have to focus all these components to the students, okay? So here is where you're going to speak the most, okay? Because the rest of the class, the students, they have to speak, right, Chelsea?
Right. So they're going to be speaking more in the active practice. The next component is active practice. And that's when your students are going to be actually practicing and actually trying themselves. So they should be the ones that are speaking most. So in active practice, what we're going to do is we're going to choose several activities. From your book, there's a bunch of different activities on pages 19 through 25 in your handbook. And you guys can actually go in there and you can choose what activities to do. It's 30 to 40 minutes long, so I would suggest to you guys to have maybe 2 to 3 activities planned. Now, here's another important thing. It's also a really good idea to always have a backup activity planned in your lesson, because you might think that something takes 5 minutes, but then it takes 10 minutes. Or you might think something takes 20 minutes and it only takes 10 minutes, because sometimes it's hard to plan for time, things like that. So if your students grasp something really easily and they finish the lesson and then maybe you have 45 minutes left, what are you going to do? You can use your backup activity. So I would always encourage you to put that in the active practice section with different activities. Okay, so we have several different activities. Okay, so then we have target vocab. Now, even though in your handbook there's different lists of different themes, such as free time activities, which is the one that we chose for this lesson, this is where you guys have some freedom. There's actually, the vocabulary is not listed in the book, it's just the theme. So all you find in the book is the theme, free time activities, and then you come up with the own vocabulary that you want to teach to your students that you think that they would be interested based on what you know about them after you've gotten to know them. Okay, so here, down in here in target vocab, I would write free time activities. So maybe basketball, swimming, sports,
Pool.
yeah, pool. That's like something Nicaraguans like, right? So
Yeah.
we're connecting with them. What else? Reading, drawing, hiking, cooking, horseback riding, cooking, napa tamales, right? It's a good idea to try to bring that personal connection in. Okay, so here in the active practice, I choose the activities, I list out what activities I'm going to do, and then I write the materials that I'm going to do as well. Any questions about that?
Have any questions? No?
Okay,
Okay.
what's next?
So next is show what you know. What are we going to do here, guys? So here is the time where you're going to test your student about like if they understood all the lesson of the class. So here mostly the students are going to be like explaining to you, or in other cases talking to you in English about what they learned. Okay, maybe you can help them also, with some questions like, for example, what do you do during weekends? Okay, so they have to show you that they truly understood this. Like, oh, I usually during weekends I go swimming, or I go playing soccer, stuff like that. Okay, so here is where you and the students, you're gonna start like an interaction and talk. among each other, okay? Also, it's always recommended to have like a group discussion because you don't want to focus on one student, okay? So how about, like, what happens if you focus on one student? Then the other students are gonna feel left out. They're gonna be like, like that. And we don't want that. We want the entire group to have like a really, really like enriching discussion, okay?
Yeah, that's a really good point too, Dennis. When you're designing all these activities here, you guys, make sure you try to break it up a little. So kind of like I mentioned before, maybe the first activity you do it as a group, and then you change into smaller groups, and one Glimpser is working with each groups of students, and then the next activity you do like pair activities where it's just two students working together, and things like that. And so then you're making it more dynamic for the students, and you're not doing the same boring thing every time. Any questions, you guys? Okay, great. I know you're antsy to start designing your lessons, so we're almost done. The last component is homework. Now, why do you think that it's important to give your students homework? I know you guys don't like getting homework, but it's an important thing. Why is that? Good, because they want to practice outside of class. Remember, like I was saying earlier? So you guys can be creative with the homework that you want to give to your students. It could be they ask a question to somebody else at home. Maybe they're teaching somebody at home what they learned in class, because that can be a really good way to actually learn, is by teaching someone else something. Maybe they're looking for English words on the street or on the internet, or maybe they have to listen to a song in English or something. So just whatever you guys feel like is a good thing to assign them for homework. It shouldn't be like too much homework. I mean, they do have things to do outside of our English classes, you know. But that's a really important component to make sure that they're actually taking something away from the classes that you're giving them.
Okay, so number 5 in the agenda is check understanding. So I'm going to be asking you like 3 questions, guys, to make sure you understood all of these lesson components. So what is the first thing that you have to do before the English tutoring section start? What is one thing that you have to do first?
Lesson plan.
It says a lesson plan. When you are at the place.
Icebreaker.
Exactly, icebreaker. Why? Why do we start with an icebreaker always? So we start with an icebreaker because we want to like get them in the mode, get them excited to learn, okay? So you can be creative, guys. You can jump, you can like sing, you can do whatever you want in order to like get them energized, alright? Good. Number 2, who does the most talking in the classroom? Okay, when explaining grammar lesson? Them? The student?
The teacher!
The teacher, exactly. So who's the teacher in this case? You guys. You Glimpsers, you are the teacher, so that's why you have to like talk more about in the grammar lesson here, this part right here, okay? So remember, so you are the one talking the most in that part of the component, okay? And finally, so why it's important to give them homework, okay? At the end of the English tutoring section.
Responsibility.
Exactly. We want them to feel responsible. We want them to make responsibility of their actions and of the English tutoring section. Okay. So remember those things, guys, because you always have to have in mind those these lesson components, but also these questions. All right.
Okay, so now we're actually going to give you guys some time to plan your lessons, and we're gonna be in our groups. They're broken up into, and we're gonna give you guys about 20 minutes to work with your groups, explore more of the English Tutoring Handbook, and actually start to plan your own lessons. So we're gonna be walking around to help you guys, and just let us know if you have any questions. Okay, go. All right, does everybody have their lessons ready, more or less? You guys will have some more time before our first tutoring session, but do you guys at least feel a little bit more comfortable with the English Tutoring Handbook? Yeah? Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah. Right, last but not least, guys, so we have the closing part of English Tutoring Seminar. So we're going to share with you, so where it's going to be, how it's going to be, how we're going to get there, and also when. Okay, so when, Chelsea?
Okay, so we're going to have our first English tutoring session on Monday.
Alright.
And it's going to be 3 times a week, so every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for while you guys are still here in Matagalpa.
Good. Where?
We're going to have our English tutoring at Colegio San Luis. And it's that, we pointed it out to you guys on the city tour. It's right in front of the cathedral. You should already know where it is. So it's just 3 blocks from our hostel. It's really close. We're going to get there by walking every night. Okay, and just so you know, the English classes are going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. and so we'll be leaving here about 5:45 so that we can walk there and be on time for you guys to set up. Another thing that you guys should know is that in the classrooms we do have whiteboards for your use, so you can plan on that when you're planning your lessons out. And just remember to bring the whiteboard markers that we have here for you.
Great. So, and also remember, guys, Global Glimpse has been working so hard in order to structure and set all these English tutoring sections. We have partnered with amazing organizations, schools, and people that help us to make this possible. Okay. So you're gonna be part of a change, and also you're gonna be part of someone else's life because you're gonna be teaching another person how to speak a language, and that's very important. Okay, and that's very powerful also. With that said, I want to share something with you, which is basically education. It's not about filling someone else's mind. It's about inspiring someone's mind. So keep that in mind when you're going and when you walk into your classrooms. And remember, take this opportunity as an opportunity to grow the person and to be able to help another person in his development or her development. All right?
Yeah, you guys
else,
are.
Chelsea?
Yeah, you guys are really lucky because you have all of this knowledge already, and you're going to be able to share it with all of these Nicaraguan people, and it's a really exciting opportunity. One thing that I want to mention to you guys, I just want to share a little story with you. My roommate, she has 2 teenage daughters, and they actually participated in the Global Glimpse classes 2 years ago, and they shared with me a story that one time they went to class, and one of their teachers, which was one of the Glimpsers, they were talking about food, and she said, "Gallo pinto me da asco," and that pretty much means gallo pinto grosses me out. And so all of the students actually really took offense to that, and they kind of saw it as an attack on their culture. And they said from that point on that they couldn't really respect or connect with their teachers. And so just be aware of everything that you say, and obviously we really want you guys to connect with your students, but we want to be very respectful of the Nicaraguan culture as well. So keep that in mind, and just remember that this is all about a mutual interchange of information and culture, and you guys are all going to learn a lot from each other. So we hope that you're excited for English tutoring, and we're really excited to see everything you guys do. And thank you so much for your time today.
All right, thank you guys. So, are you guys excited?
Yes.
I know you are.
Woo.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. See you in an hour for dinner.
Hello everyone, so thank you for watching us. This was our English tutoring seminar. Just to finish strong, guys, we want to give you some personal tips. We want to share with you this.
Hi, future PCs. So my first recommendation would be with the English tutoring tips at the beginning of the seminar to act them out. You noticed that I did that in the video where I would kind of act as the teacher and act out scenarios like talking really fast or mumbling or not making eye contact, and that makes the students kind of engage more, and then you can ask them to guess what the tip is, and then also have them be brainstorming other tips to see what else they come up with that's not listed just on the seminar page. Also just try to involve the students as much as they can, so kind of try to gauge how they're feeling about English tutoring and see what knowledge they're already coming into it with, and kind of see where they are before you load a bunch of information on them. My next tip would be to, if possible, try to give some personal experience. So Dennis and I have both taught English, so we were able to give them that help and support and kind of give them some experience oh, you guys, this happened when I was teaching English once, and kind of make that connection a little bit more with them. Also the cultural anecdote that I mentioned about the gallo pinto, try to make it a little bit more real than just exactly what you're reading on the paper. And then my last tip would be also allow for the GG leaders' input during the seminar, because since they're teachers, they have often a lot of good tips for teaching the students that sometimes we might not think of, and that we'll be able to give the glimpsers more support too.
So I can give you some tips, and number one, it's make sure they understood the topics. I mean the lesson components, because that's very important, because then you don't want them to be asking you every single day for the same question. So make sure you explain very well, take your time, don't rush, because remember they are not English instruction, they are not teachers, they are students, okay, and they're learning also how to teach this language, which is something that's difficult. Okay, so make sure you go over the lesson components 2, twice, or 3 times. It's recommended. And the next tip is be patient with them when you're explaining this seminar, because some of them, they won't get it at first. So be patient, walk them through the process. And my final tips is also explain the Nicaraguan cultural aspect with the students, because the cultural differences in high school in classrooms are very like big. There's a big difference. So make sure you explain those Nicaraguan differences. For example, how the students interact here in Nicaragua. So to avoid any like cultural shock, okay?
Yeah, when we were doing our English tutoring seminars with the delegations, Dennis would always do a role play where he would actually act like a Nicaraguan student, and then the Glimpser would have to try to teach him something. So it actually served two purposes, because it gave them a way to kind of practice being in that role already, and then it also gave Dennis a chance to give them some tips about working with Nicaraguans in a dynamic way.
So my last tip, remind them that this is like a cultural exchange, but at the same time they need to take this English tutoring very serious. Okay, they want to like look as a professional. They want to create a professional environment, establish the rules since the beginning. That's very important when you're in front of the classroom. At the same time, make sure that they learn, the Nicaraguans learn, and our glimpses learn as well. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So we hope guys you enjoyed our video. Thanks for watching us, and we wish you the very best in this journey.
Good luck!
Bye!
Bye!
Muévelo.